Chicago's Beetlejuicean crackpot mayor has lost. She didn't just lose, she came in third place, which is just so sad. So sad. Sad to see her go. She lost to a guy. Well, she lost to two guys, but the main guy who's winning, Paul Vallis, his principal campaign promise is like public safety. On his website, he's got his plan, but then there's a big public safety and report crime. I'm from Chicago. Y'all know that. Crime's a big problem. Crime has been getting worse, and Lori Lightfoot has helped make it worse, and I think she's crooked. I think she was corrupt. Now she's out, and the people of Chicago have stood up and said, enough of this. And considering what we saw in St. Louis the other day, I think people are finally getting fed up with the Democrats' pro-crime policy. I know, I can already hear all the leftist liberal commentators being like, Democrats don't like crime, Tim. You're right. They don't like crime. They like criminals. They like letting criminals out of jails. They like making sure that when a guy commits a crime over and over again, they just let him go. They like punishing you, hardworking taxpayer and homeowner, so that you can't defend yourself when a psychopath shoots and executes a homeless man in broad daylight. You know, they got this story out of St. Louis, just so crazy. A dude just slowly puts loads the gun, chambers around. It takes like a minute and a half, and then he executes a homeless guy. Everybody just watches. I shouldn't say everybody. It's not like everybody in the world is there. There's like a guy watching and filming, telling people what's going on. Well, the reality is, and most people know this, the way Democrats have run these cities, if you intervene, you go to jail. That's right. And this is the best they can do. They can vote this person out. Now, I think there's a lot of interesting things going on here as it pertains to crime and how people feel politically. But Lori Lightfoot's loss could mean something bigger. It could mean something bigger for the rest of this country, because right now we're kind of in this in-between phase. Republicans, of course, won the House. They didn't take the Senate. And I think the big reason there is federally ballot harvesting plays the biggest role, and Republicans need to get on their game. Republicans were late to the party with Win Red versus Act Blue as well. If you're not familiar, Act Blue was a digital fundraising platform that Democrats set up a while ago, and it took Republicans years to catch up to that, playing an old game. Now I think because of crime, we may see something tremendous happen in 2024. I think Republicans are going to start picking up the slack on ballot harvesting and ballot chasing. And then you are going to see a wave of regular people say enough. Here's what I find really fascinating. You take a look at the racial demographics in voting. And what do you find? The guy named Garcia, he won the areas of Chicago where Hispanics live. Lori Lightfoot, she won the area of Chicago where black people live. And the other guys get a lot of their votes from the areas that are predominantly white. Yeah, that's an untenable situation for all of you, for all of us, okay? The idea that we put up candidates for a political office and they just win the votes based on their race. I think that's something people should consider, especially considering all the hubbub over Scott Adams. But let's read this, go through the data, and let's talk about what crime is doing to the Democratic Party. They supported it, and now they will reap what they have sown. Fox News says, Lori Lightfoot, a Democrat, lost her re-election bid Monday night, and critics are celebrating the end of her term. Under Lightfoot, Chicago has seen soaring crime rates, which became a theme of her opponent's criticism. In 2021, homicides in Chicago rose to the highest numbers in 25 years, outpacing other crime-ridden cities like New York City and LA. Throughout her tenure, the mayor has been blasted for her poor relationship with law enforcement, as the city's police department lost a significant number of officers in recent years amid the rise in crime. Lightfoot faced challenges from 8 other candidates in the mayoral race, but failed to make the runoff after finishing the election in 3rd place. Well, Paul Vallis, he's a guy who got 1st place. He's going into a runoff against, I think, Brandon Johnson. And take a look at his website. You go to his website, and what do you see? Share your crime story. I found that really funny. Paul's plan. What would Paul do? And then you can see there's a drop-down menu: education, economic development, women's health and safety, reducing youth violence, aging in place, Chicago's pension crisis, environmental justice, reducing homelessness, accountability and transparency. But then literally right next to it at the top, public safety. That's it. That's all anyone cares about. And I'm not surprised. If you come to me and you're like, you got to vote for me because I want to talk to you about, we got these recycling bins, okay? I'm going to be like, recycling bins? Okay, well, I don't like pollution, I guess. And then while you're pitching me this, a guy walks up with a gun, points it at me and takes my wallet. I'm going to be like, how about you do something about that? These videos that come out of Chicago are quite horrifying. Now, of course, with the defeat, what do you think Lori Lightfoot had to say? Well, ousted Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who lost re-election bid with just 17% of the vote, claims she was treated unfairly because she's a black woman in America, despite overall crime soaring by 52% in a year. I think when the people of your city are seeing a 52% increase in crime, they're starting to worry. And perhaps they're starting to think that you're on the side of the criminals. I think that's probably a fair point to say. There's a bunch of stuff going on with how Democrats are running cities. I just want to give an honorable mention to, but maybe we'll come back to. Atlanta's wealthiest suburb, Buckhead, inches closer to seceding from crime-ridden city and could be up for a vote as soon as today. We should probably come back to that one. I want to talk to you all about Chicago, and actually, this one kind of freaked me out. Let's talk about what's, Scott Adams was talking about segregation. You've got critical race theorists talking about segregation. Take a look at this from the New York Times. Chicago mayor election results. So I wanted to know, what is the driving force behind the ousting of Lori Lightfoot? Are people waking up and being like, we can't have none of this crime, no more, you got to get her out of there? Or was it something else? And I think it's something else. I think crime plays a role, don't get me wrong, but take a look at this. So first, I want to know, what are the hard numbers? Paul Vallis got 172,000 votes, 33.8%. Brandon Johnson got 103,000. Lori Lightfoot got 86,952. And Jesus G. Garcia got 70,006. You can see that Lori Lightfoot, she didn't make the cut. Now, here's the interesting thing. Lori Lightfoot won her last election in a runoff where she only ended up with like 90,000 votes in the first place. And there were so many people running, she had the most. She ended up winning. It's a split vote. This is the problem with first past the post elections. So I don't know if I don't think I have the Ballotpedia pulled up. I don't. But on Ballotpedia, I was looking at the previous election. She gets like 92,000 votes, putting her in first place. So it goes to a runoff between her and second place. And then she gets 386,000. But that means most people didn't want her. Most people didn't vote for her. But when you split the vote this way, that's what you get. This is a story I remember from Egypt. And y'all that are big fans that watched every single episode of my show know I've talked about this. When the revolution happened in Egypt, what was it, like 2012 or 2013? You get all of these political parties emerging to try and replace the military dictatorship. 8 of 10 are secular. 2 of 10 are Muslim. However, all the Muslims vote for the Muslim party no matter what. So I think it was like the Muslim Brotherhood. Maybe not. But what happens is 80% of the people wanted a secular government, but they split their vote. So the largest single party to get the votes with like 20% was an Islamic political party. Guess what happens? A year later, you get another revolution because people are like, no, we don't want this. That's the problem with what's called first past the post voting. In that out of 500,000 people in the last election, 555,000, I think it was, Lori Lightfoot got 90,000 votes. So she gets to go into a runoff and then she beats the other person. Okay, fine. She won a runoff between one other person. But most people didn't want her. They probably voted for her begrudgingly. Well, take a look at this. 172,000 goes to Paul Vallis and then Brandon Johnson. But let me show you Let me show you the results by ward. As soon as I saw this, I went, no. Because I know Chicago and I know what this map means. And do you know what this map means? So you can see here who won. Well, you got the colors. Paul Vallis is maroon. Brandon Johnson is the burnt orangish yellow. Lori Lightfoot's purple. And Jesus G. Garcia is green. And I immediately noticed the green areas tend to be Hispanic. And the purple areas tend to be black. And the white areas tend to be white. I can't really say much about, Ward 40, Rogers Park area, Logan Square. Those are white areas too. So, let's talk about politics, my friends. I want you to take a look at this. And now I want you to see map of race and ethnicity by neighborhood in Chicago. And what do you see? Here's white. you can see that up here in the top left, in the right, down here on the bottom left, a little bit on the bottom right, and these areas right here, these are the predominantly white areas. You can see there's a higher density of white people in these areas. All right, let's go back to the New York Times. You can see there is the bottom left. Well, the bottom right, Ward 10, is large. So to be fair, you do have down here in the bottom right high densities of white people. And so you go back here. Yep, top left, top right, all of that. Look at that. Here's the big concentration of white people on the north side. And lo, the white dude and the other white guy get a large concentration of votes. All right. Now let's take a look at the green. Jesus G. Garcia, Little Village, Ward 12. And you've got Ward 31, which is west of Logan Square. I've actually used to live there. And, okay, let's go Hispanic. And come on, man. Holy crap. Okay, to be fair, in the bottom right, you do have a large density of Hispanic voters. And you do see Ward 10 going split between Paul Vallis and Jesus G. Garcia. But it's like still right there. Okay, look at this. 36% Paul Vallis, 35% Jesus G. Garcia. Yo, people are just voting for the person who is the same race as them. Welcome to racial politics in this country, I guess. Look at Little Village, right? This whole green area, Ward 12, 14, it's all green. And then up here, and then look at the race map. This is Hispanic. The area with Hispanic voters voted for Jesus G. Garcia, and you can see it plain as day. I'm not so sure crime played a role other than to motivate white people to go vote. That's just the way it looks to me. You take a look at this. So you can see Ward 13, and this is, I'm pretty sure this is like my area where I grew up, Ward 13 and 23. You can see it's Paul Vallis versus Jesus G. Garcia. They're the ones up against each other. You take a look in Little Village, and it's Paul Vallis versus Jesus G. Garcia. That makes sense, but overwhelmingly, it's 58% Jesus G. Garcia to Paul Vallis. That's just so crazy to me. And here, Paul Vallis, 28, Jesus G. Garcia, and where's you got Paul here? You can see there you go. Look at white dude, black frame glasses, very stereotypical. This is kind of heartbreaking, to be honest, but it's not surprising. All right. Let's go back to the statisticalatlas.com, and let's do black voters. And there you go. Once again, this huge section of predominantly black voters, and this section right here, you then jump over, and what do you get? There it is. It's Lori Lightfoot. Lori Lightfoot versus Willie Wilson. I don't even know who Willie Wilson is. Look at this. In the purple areas, Lori Lightfoot was up against Willie Wilson and nobody else. Paul Vallis doesn't even register in these areas. How can we function as a society in this way? I seriously don't get it. And I got to be honest, I think the critical race theorists on the far left are the ones who are making it worse. They are telling you that race is the issue, and it's right there in front of our faces. When you look at the results by ward versus the racial breakdown of Chicago, to put it simply, white people voted for the white guy, black people voted for the black lady, and Hispanics voted for the Hispanic guy. That's it. So I want to sit here and be like, this story about crime really matters. But in the end, what matters is, can you motivate enough of your race to go vote? That's freaky, man. What are you going to say? What is the left going to say? Are they going to tell me I'm wrong? Are they going to say, no, Tim, that's not correct? I'm looking at a racial breakdown of Chicago, and I'm looking at the electoral breakdown of Chicago, and there is an overlap between where the black candidate did the best, where the Hispanic candidate did the best, and where the white candidates did the best. And the white candidates did the best in the white areas, the Hispanics did the best in the Hispanic areas, and the black woman did the best in the black areas. With one exception. Well, I shouldn't even say it's an exception. When you look at Ward 10, and you can see that it's actually split between Hispanic and white. And then you look at the vote results, and it's literally split between Paul Vallis and Jesus G. Garcia. Wow. Willie Wilson. Where's Willie Wilson? Where's he at? He got 9.5% of the vote. Willie Wilson. Okay. All right. Maybe I'm not completely right on this one, but I'm gonna go ahead and let's pull up Willie Wilson's campaign website. Can we find elect Willie Wilson? All right, I'm loading up the website right here. Let's pull this up. Early voting in downtown Chicago for municipal elections, and there he is. Willie Wilson is a black man. This kind of bums me out. It really does. But I'm not surprised by it. If you look at the black neighborhoods of Chicago, they voted almost exclusively for the black candidates. In the Latino neighborhoods, Hispanic neighborhoods, it's mostly, I mean, look, Jesus G. Garcia gets 45% to Paul Vallis's 29% to Brandon Johnson's 14%. So, there's a lot of vote for the white dudes there. That's just it, man. In the white areas, they vote for the white guy. And then look at this. You can see in areas where it overlaps, like if you look at Ward 37 to Ward 27, you can see it's Paul Vallis 25.8 to Lori Lightfoot 25.5. Areas where you start to see a mixture of the black and white community. And then in the areas where you see a mixture of the Hispanic and the white community, you get Paul Vallis versus Jesus G. Garcia. So, a lot of people were ragging on Scott Adams, who probably could have made his point much better. His point was, of course, not that we should segregate, though a lot of people were shocked by what he said. And I don't know if they're getting the actual context of what he said because of the way he said it. I'm not trying to defend the guy. What he was saying is that if the Democrats get what they want, if critical race theory rules the land, if affirmative action, all these things are going to be in place, then what else can you expect to tell someone other than this? I'm not surprised. I'm really not. Crime played a big role, obviously. But the only real role that it played is it motivated white people to vote. That's the truth. Paul Vallis gets 172,000 votes. Why? Because white people in white areas started voting. That's it. If you saw a bigger overlap in the white areas for Lori Lightfoot, I might think something different, but you don't see it. Lori Lightfoot did poorly in these wider areas. In the O'Hare area, 72% for Paul Vallis, 7% for Willie Wilson. That's really interesting. And then even in many of these areas, Jesus G. Garcia. That's crazy, man. What do you think? Comment below. Because, man, how is the left going to frame this one is I wonder. I grew up in Chicago, and I can tell you, it is one of the most racially segregated places I have ever been to. Now, when you go to a rural city and everybody's white, it's not so much that it's segregated, it's just that everybody's white. You go to Chicago, and there are streets that as soon as you cross the street, everyone's a different race. And then there's actually like unspoken rules about which neighborhoods you're safe in or not. So I grew up in the Midway area. Actually, let me show you. I grew up down here. I think that's Ward 13 it's like the Midway area. And voted for Paul Vallis. It's a lot of white trash. I wonder how many people who live there are going to be like, hey, Tim, don't call us white trash. I'm like, bro, come on. You and I know growing up there, we were all white trash. Well, I mean, I was mixed race, so you were white trash. I was mixed race, gutter, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But I grew up down here in Chicago, and there was there's a street. Actually, I can show you. I can actually just show you outright. If maybe I can zoom in. Is there a zoom in or something? So Garfield Ridge is where I was, and Vidum Park is right here. So let me actually zoom into this neighborhood, and I can explain to you if this zoom works properly. So Vidum Park, that's actually where I and Jimmy Dore are both from. Crazy story, right? So Vidum Park is, let's do it, white, 29% white, and then Garfield Ridge is 55% white. I actually lived in Vidum Park, this area. Literally, I was like one block over from it. Like 2 city blocks, to be fair. But very, very close. I could walk there in like a minute and a half when I was a little kid. And then right above it is the LeClaire Courts. The LeClaire Courts is predominantly black, 64.2. And then you have Archer Heights. And there's a street right here. You can look at this. 64.2% black. Right below it, 1.7 in Vidum Park. Let's do Hispanic. And I think Hispanic makes up the difference. So Vidum Park is, how is it 66? Wait, what? Oh, yeah. Vidum Park is 29% white, mostly Hispanic, and then Garfield Ridge is mostly white. You cross into the LeClaire Courts was 47th Street. If you've heard me talk about it, you now see here is the statistical proof of what I was talking about. When we would hang out at Vidum, you got 47th Street to the north, and then everything below. And when you crossed that, you were in a black neighborhood, and below it was a mixed Hispanic white neighborhood. And then if you went a little bit further, Garfield Ridge is, Vidum Park's a very, very small area. So you go to Garfield Ridge, it's mostly white. Clearing is mostly white, and then Chrysler Village, I think this is, white. And so then you got Ford City. Oh, man, Ford City. Ford City Mall, we used to go hang out there. You cross the street, you're in a different racial neighborhood because it is all segregated. You know, you got that, people like to say demographics is destiny. The Democrats have been talking for a long time about how bringing in non-white voters would help win them elections. When you look at something like this, I think it's undeniable, at least in Chicago, and it breaks my heart. I don't want to live in a world where the voter map is broken down by race, but it literally is the case. Don't look at me, man. I didn't make up the data, and you can't deny it. The New York Times shows you outright. How crazy is that? I think for most people, it's not crazy at all. They're like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. So this dream of multiculturalism, yo, man, we got to get past this stuff. We got to figure out how we do this. I think the problem is with the wokeness and the critical race theorists, they're telling you to vote for people based on race. They're telling you to segregate based on race. No. We got to stop all that. You know, they talk about redlining and blockbusting. We need people to live together. All right. We need people of different racial backgrounds to see each other as people, to live together. The problem right now is that they don't. And as much as the left may want to tell you there's some utopian vision of anti-racism, whatever, they are sowing the seeds to make more of it. They are making people more racist. They are segregating in schools. They're doing black-only graduation ceremonies at Ivy League colleges. So how is this serving making a better world? It's not. It's just making more of what I grew up seeing all the time. That's the sad reality. Race was the real reason. Crazy. That sucks, man. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.